Hungarian Folk Tales. The Foolish Man. Many, many years ago, in a land far, far away, there lived a man and his wife. And I'm sorry to tell you that the man was not very clever. In fact, the man was a fool. And every day his wife had to tell him what to do and how to do it. The man and his wife had a cow, and one day his wife said, "Why don't you take the cow to market to sell it?" So the man dressed her foolish husband in his best clothes, and he left for the market with the cow. It was a very hot summer's day, and a cloud of flies began to bother the cow and make it run back and forth all over the place. And as they were walking, they met a man with a pig. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome cow for this pig?" "Oh, but of course I would," he said, and they made the exchange. So now the foolish man had a pig, but the pig was harder to control than the cow had been, and the foolish man did not like it at all. And as they were walking, they met a man carrying a goose. "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome pig for this goose?" "Oh, but of course I would." Well, the goose was no better. It made a terrible mess, its feathers stuck to the foolish man's clothes, and he soon grew tired of carrying it. As they walked, they passed a man by the side of the road who was selling sharpening stones, and the man said, "Kind sir, wouldn't you prefer to swap your troublesome goose for this sharpening stone?" "Oh, but of course I would." So the foolish man was now left with nothing more than a sharpening stone, and he turned around and set off back home. And as he walked, he passed a pond with ducks swimming on it. The foolish man thought he would like to take a duck home for his wife. So he threw the sharpening stone, it sank into the pond, and all the ducks flew away. Now what am I going to do? No cow, no pig, no goose, no sharpening stone, no nothing. So he took off all his clothes and waded into the pond to find the sharpening stone. He searched the pond but could not find it anywhere. And when he came out of the water, he discovered that someone had stolen all of his clothes. So the foolish man was forced to walk home naked. The foolish man was very hungry when he got home, and so he cut himself a slice of bread and went down into the cellar to have a drink of wine. So he put the bread on the step and looked around to see that the dog had made off with it. He then threw the wine tap at the dog, so all the wine spilled out of the barrel onto the floor. A goose sat in the corner hatching eggs, and the goose said, "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle." "You're going to tell my wife?" "Gaggle, gaggle, gaggle, hiss, hiss." And the goose went on making a terrible din. So the foolish man grabbed the goose, wrung its neck, and threw it out into the yard. Then he poured a bag of flour into the wine and some feathers, rolled around in it, and sat on the eggs. His wife then came down into the cellar and said, "What on earth is going on here?" She looked around at the spilled wine, the flour, and the feathers, and saw something sitting on the eggs. "What kind of monster is this? You had better say something before I knock your head off. It's me, dear wife. Don't hurt me." "Where's the cow?" "I swapped it for a pig." "So where's the pig?" "I swapped it for a goose." "So where's the goose?" I swapped it for a sharpening stone. So where's the sharpening stone? I threw it into the pond. I wanted to hit a duck so I could bring it home to you. And where are your clothes? Somebody stole them while I was looking for the sharpening stone. Oh, you foolish man. And she pulled him off the eggs and gave him the beating of his life. The foolish man's wife never sent him anywhere again after that, and did everything herself because it was safer that way. And that is the end of my story. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Prince Who Wanted to Live Forever. Once upon a time there was a prince. He told his father that he did not want to die. You should know, son, that he who is born will also die. But the prince insisted that he did not want to die. I'll go to Foreverland. There's no such place, my son. Yes, there is. I've heard of it. Very well then, go. The prince prepared himself and wandered for many years until he came to a high mountain. He regarded the mountain and saw something at its very peak. It looked as small as a sparrow. Well, if he had come all this way, he simply had to find out what it was. It took him years to scale the mighty mountain. There he found a huge giant. He greeted the giant, and the giant returned his greeting. What are you doing here, Prince? I'm looking for Foreverland. Could you tell me which way to go? Of course, you've arrived. Stay here with me because the Queen of Foreverland will send you here anyway. I'd like to talk to the Queen myself. Please tell me which way to go from here. There's a large forest over there. If you cross it, you'll find her. The prince went off to find the forest. There he came upon a magnificent palace. And there he found a kindly woman sewing in one of the rooms. What are you looking for, Prince? The Queen, of course. Well, don't go any further, because she will send you here anyway. Stay with me, and we can talk. But I wish to talk to the Queen herself. You cannot get in to see her, because you have to go through 3 iron gates, and each is guarded by 3 wild beasts. But if you don't want to stay here, I'll give you 3 bread buns. Should the animals attack you at the gates, give them a bun, and the iron gates will open. And so it all happened. When the 3rd iron gate opened up, the prince saw the Queen was standing in the middle of a courtyard. She asked the prince what had brought him to her palace. I've come looking for you. Then stay here with me. And the prince stayed. Time went by, and one day the prince said to the Queen, "Listen, I'd like to go home. I left my old parents behind, and I'd like to see how they are." The Queen laughed. "Being a prince has not made you any wiser. How many years do you think you've been here? 3 years? You've been here for 3,000 years, but I won't keep you from going if you really want to. I'll give you a pair of shoes. Take them with you. A man will attack you. Tell him you'll go with him and then put on these shoes. So the prince set off, and he wandered and wandered until he reached a town. But the town was no longer the same as it had been. He asked a few people if they knew the king by such and such a name. No, nobody knew him. He asked the oldest-looking man who was the oldest man in town. The man showed him the house where a 300-year-old man lived. The prince went to see him. "Do you remember my father, old man?" "Oh, my son, I've never even heard of him." As night fell, the prince found himself a room, made himself a bed out of hay, and went to sleep. In the morning, he woke up with a man standing right in front of him. "Hail, Prince! I've been looking for you for 3,000 years, and now I've found you. Come with me because you ought to have died a long time ago." "Wait a minute, let me put on these shoes. Let's go out, and then I'll go with you." When the prince put on the shoes, they whizzed him away at once. Death rushed after him everywhere but failed to catch the prince. When the prince reached the walls of the Queen's palace, the Queen of Foreverland was standing there in the courtyard. She shouted to Death, "Don't you touch that man. I'll go out and take care of him. I'll throw him up high, and if he falls outside the walls, he'll be yours. But if he falls within the walls, he'll be mine." When the king threw the prince up high, Death danced and clapped, thinking that he was going to fall outside. But as it happened, he landed within the walls. The Queen then chased Death away, telling him never to return to her land again, otherwise he would surely die himself. So the prince stayed with the Queen, and they both lived happily ever after. Hungarian Folk Tales. The Poor Man and His Horse. Once upon a time, long ago and far away, there lived a poor man. Now he had 2 sons, and he had a grey horse. He was very poor and had to earn his bread by carting. Here and there he trudged with that grey horse of his, for that was the only way he could put food on the table. But the roads were so bad and very muddy. Now that grey horse had had enough of pulling the cart all by himself. Back he looked and said, "You're a good and kind owner, so will you buy a partner for me?" "You can speak?" "Of course I can, after all these years of learning how from you. So will you buy a partner for me?" "I would indeed, if only I had the money." "Do you know what? Let me loose and I'll get what we need." "How can I let you loose?" "If I do that, you'll never come back and you'll leave me here." "Die I won't for sure. You're my owner." So the man led him out of the stable, took the halter off him and let him go. The grey horse was very happy. Up went his tail, he whizzed around the yard once or twice, and off he went. The man was very worried. "That's a horse I'll never see back here again," he thought. Well, the grey horse headed off out of the village. Off he went up to the forest, and there he ate well from the greenest grass and came upon the sweet water of a bubbling spring. Then off he went to look around the forest. There he found the entrance to a fox's den. It looked good, so he snuggled himself into it, and there he fell asleep. Just then the vixen and her cubs woke up. It was coming time to go and find something to eat. So the vixen turned to her eldest cub and said, "Now, son, just go out and see what the weather's like outside." Off went the little fox, who got as far as the entrance to the den. He could see that everything had gone all white, so he quickly rushed back to tell the others. "Mother, we can't go out at all. There's been a big fall of snow and it's blocked the way." That got him a slap on the ear from his mother. "How can you say there's snow when we're right in the middle of summer?" "Out you go," she said to another of her cubs, "and see what the weather's like outside." The second cub turned back and said to his mother, "Mother, we can't go out at all. There's such a lot of snow." Thump, and he got one across his ear as well. The vixen sighed and she went up. She looked, and right enough, everything had gone all white. She sniffed the air, but it wasn't cold. She thought about it and dug out another entrance to the den. When she went out, what did she see, believe it or not, but a great big grey horse that had died and was lying at the entrance to the den. "It couldn't have come to a better place to die. We'll pull it in somehow, and that will see us through the long days of winter." Now, it was all very well for her to plan, but she couldn't even move the horse. Oh dear, what was there to do? She thought about it, and off she went to see the wolf. "Who's there?" "It's me, Brother Wolf." "What can I do for your sister fox?" "I bring you good news, brother. Just let me in." And the wolf let her in. "Right. There's a big grey horse that has come and died at my front door, and I can't drag him away. So I thought that you're a big and strong creature, and the two of us can surely drag him off somewhere and have his meat for the winter." The wolf licked his lips, and off he went with the vixen. Once they got there, around they sniffed. They pushed and they pulled, but it didn't work. "Sister Fox, you haven't got a good hold of it. Try to push." They tried and tried, but they couldn't manage. Then she spoke up. "Do you know what we can do? We can tie your tail to the horse's tail. You pull away and I'll push. That's the only way we'll manage it." "Fine, Sister Fox," said the wolf. So the wolf went around to the horse's tail, and the fox made a fine tight knot out of their two tails. Well, the wolf started pulling and pulled and pulled until it was out of breath. "Push now, sister, push. I'll pull and you can push." Now the horse felt the wolf pulling hard on his tail. He woke up and jumped to his feet. He shook himself, started to race off, and there was the wolf still tied to his tail and swinging from left to right as they went. And when the horse was sure the wolf was well and truly dizzy, off he galloped towards the village. Once he arrived home, he let out a loud neigh. Out rushed his owner. He's home, thank heavens, my fine grey horse." He quickly opened the gate to the yard. "Here you are, good master," said the horse. "I've brought you this wolf, so you can have his fine fur and sell it, and with that, you can buy another horse." And that's what happened. They took the wolfskin to the market, and with the price, they bought another horse, and went their way with two horses, just like any other men. And they all lived happily ever after. And that's the end of my tale of a poor man and of the tale of his faithful horse.